Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. The Curse of Oak Island. The team finds gold in the side of the garden shaft. On this week's The Curse of Oak Island, the team detected a large quantity of gold in the wood on the side of the garden shaft. There was both disappointment and excitement during last night's episode. There was frustration when the borehole drill team went in search of a tunnel or void they had previously encountered at 55 feet. Borehole number DN 10.5 seemed to show such promise when it began pulling up loose soil, indicating there may be a structure nearby. However, after digging down to 120 feet without hitting any voids or tunnels, they concluded they must have missed it this time. And there were more glum faces after the Dumas Mining Company finished their probing project, having found nothing. Dumas had drilled into all four walls of the garden shaft at 55 feet, hoping to find a void or chamber, but sadly they got nothing. However, fortunes can change quickly on Oak Island. Metallurgy expert Emma Culligan had been tasked with analyzing a piece of wood taken from the side of the garden shaft during Dumas's drilling operation, and she'd had a surprise for the team. There's gold in the wood of the garden shaft. Within the wood, Emma detected quite a lot of gold. She said that 0.11% of the wood was gold. This may not sound like a big number, but geoscientist Dr. Ian Spooner said, "This is huge." Emma assured everyone that it was a lot of parts per billion. Rick and Marty Lagina were absolutely thrilled with the news. Emma got a round of applause, and suddenly the frowns were turned upside down. Ian knew exactly how to proceed. He recommended that they keep drilling, keep taking samples, and sooner or later, they will narrow things down to the location of the treasure. Meanwhile, on Lot 26, near the well that dates as far back as the 10th century, the guys had been examining an unusual old wall. The team was joined by forestry technician Peter Rumke, who set about retrieving a core from the massive oak tree that was growing out of the wall. The core was sent to the lab to be dated, but Peter already estimated that the tree must be hundreds of years old. The team believes the wall predates the tree, so when they have the tree's age, they'll also have the minimum age of the wall. The mysterious wall on Lot 26 is throwing up surprises. The wall is different from others found on the island because of the technical skill used in its construction. It was clearly built by someone who knew what they were doing. Peter is also a bit of an expert on walls, and he theorized that the stones used for its construction may have been debris from tunneling. He saw the wall as a good way to hide evidence of tunneling. As the guys began dismantling the wall, looking for clues, they noticed that a lot of the rocks had been cut or sliced from other rocks. These rocks were red granite, which led Alex Lagina to recall that the Kingdom Stone from Nolan's Cross is also red granite and had been cut from another stone. This all led them to wonder if the wall was built by the same people who constructed Nolan's Cross. One theory has argued that the cross was built by Templar knights and may act as a marker for buried ancient Christian relics. Also on last night's episode, metal detectorist Gary Drayton, aided by Rick, found an axe head on Lot 4. They need to do more testing on the artifact, but Gary speculated that it could date all the way back to the Viking era. A Viking axe would be hugely significant. A few months back, the team found another artifact on the nearby Lot 5, which one expert said could be Viking in origin. That piece featured ancient symbols which were commonly used by Vikings. It was a crisp morning on Oak Island, the kind where the air seemed to buzz with anticipation. The Laginas and their team had gathered near the garden shaft, a place where so many before them had stood, each hoping to be the one to finally uncover the island's long-buried secrets. Rick Lagina stood at the edge, gazing down into the depths of the shaft. His eyes, weathered by years of exploration and hope, glinted with determination. Beside him, his brother Marty checked his equipment, his more practical mind constantly working through the logistics of what lay ahead. They had been chasing shadows and legends for years, but something about today felt different, almost electric. "We're getting closer," Rick muttered under his breath, though loud enough for Marty to hear. "You always say that," Marty replied with a smirk, but there was no denying that beneath his sarcasm, even he felt the weight of the moment. The team had already explored much of the shaft, but today they had decided to focus on a specific section along the sidewall. Their ground-penetrating radar had picked up something unusual, something that didn't quite match the layers of soil and stone they had encountered so far. Craig Tester, the ever-cautious scientist, had run the data through his tests multiple times. Each time, the results suggested something metallic buried deep within the side of the shaft. Could it be? "Let's do it," Rick said, signaling the drilling team. As the drill began to wear and bite into the stone, everyone held their breath. The sound echoed through the forest, a mechanical growl that reverberated deep into the island's bones. It was as if they were disturbing something ancient, something long forgotten by time. For what felt like an eternity, the drill chewed its way forward, carving a path into the side of the garden shaft. Then suddenly, a sharp clank echoed up from the depths. The drill had hit something hard, something metallic. The team froze. The noise reverberated around them, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. "Stop!" Marty shouted, and the machine ground to a halt. The once noisy sight now fell into an eerie silence. The air seemed thick, the tension palpable. Rick exchanged glances with Marty, a mixture of excitement and disbelief dancing in their eyes. They lowered a camera down the borehole to get a closer look. On the monitor, the image flickered as the camera descended, scanning the walls of the shaft. Then there it was, a gleaming, golden surface just barely visible in the cracks of the rock. It was unmistakable. "Gold," Rick whispered, his voice barely audible over the soft hum of the equipment. "It's gold." The rest of the team gathered around the monitor, their eyes wide with awe. Gary Drayton, the team's metal detection expert, clapped his hands together, grinning from ear to ear. "A proper Bobby Dazzler, boys," he exclaimed, his British accent thick with excitement. But this was different from the random coins or trinkets they had found before. This wasn't just a lost item, it was a piece of something larger, something hidden deliberately. The Laginas wasted no time. They knew that unearthing the gold would be no easy task, but they were ready. Carefully they set up their extraction tools, ensuring every move was precise. As the hours ticked by, they worked methodically, chipping away at the surrounding stone to free the treasure. Each tap of the chisel echoed with a sense of destiny. As they worked, the sunlight began to fade, casting long shadows across the island. The atmosphere grew more intense, the weight of centuries pressing down on them. Even the birds had fallen silent, as if the island itself was holding its breath. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they freed the first piece. It was a chunk of gold, rough and unpolished, but undeniably real. The metal caught the fading sunlight, shimmering like a beacon of hope. The sight of it left everyone speechless. Rick held the gold in his hands, his face a mixture of disbelief and joy. "After all these years," he began, his voice breaking slightly. "We found it." But this was just the beginning. As they continued to dig, they uncovered more. Larger pieces of gold and intricate engravings that hinted at something even greater. A symbol was etched into the surface of one piece, a cryptic mark that none of them had seen before. Was it a clue? A sign of who had buried this treasure centuries ago? Marty, always the skeptic, couldn't help but be overwhelmed by the magnitude of their find. "This isn't just a treasure. This is history," he said, his voice reverent. The team gathered around, staring at the gold, feeling the weight of their discovery. For years they had chased legends, dug through mud and stone, followed countless leads that led to dead ends. But now, here in the fading light of the day, they held tangible proof that the treasure of Oak Island was real, and they had only scratched the surface. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the island in a golden glow, Rick looked out over the landscape, his heart filled with a mix of triumph and wonder. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. And in that moment, they all knew he was right. The garden shaft had given up its first secret, but Oak Island still held many more mysteries, buried deeper beneath the earth. The treasure hunt was far from over, but for the first time in years, they had proof that their dream was real. Gold. Real, tangible gold.